It says a lot about Wheel that when I woke up this morning and saw that both they and Gojira had released new music, I listened to Wheel first. And that has nothing to do at all with me not noticing the new Gojira song. No, I wouldn't do that, not me, totally not. Enough side-tracking, we're here for reviewing, not shithousery. So let's get into Wheel's Resident Human with Song 1, Dissipating. What an exemplary demonstration of patient build-up. I love me a good, long, flowing journey full of peaks and valleys, and there are 3 great examples of that on this album. Dissipating being a bit of a middle ground between the other 2. Now, for the first, but by no means the last time, Jesus hentai Christ on a unicycle, that bass! Seriously, this has to be the most in-your-face bass I've ever heard. Front, centre, and unapologetically aggressive. The bass on this album is a constant standout. If this album has taught me one thing, it's that Aki Virto is one heel of a bassist, and no, I'm not changing that, he's a heel now, we better get used to it. But I digress. This song's sound is so polished and measured, and the last 3 minutes are absolutely Stank face approved. Also, just to get the inevitable Tool comparisons out of the way, yes, this sounds a lot like Tool, probably more than any other song on the album, but there's nothing wrong with that. Originality is overrated in my opinion. All that matters is quality. Now, before I say anything even more controversial, let's move on to the next song, Movement. This was the first single on Resident Human to be released, and having heard the full product, I must say I think it's my least favourite track. Though not by a lack of musicianship, but because it reminds me a lot of Vultures of their first album, Looking Backwards. And I like Vultures more. It feels more organically open, but we'll get back to those comparisons later. Instead, I want to make it very clear that Movement is still a very solid song, and while the oppressive atmosphere is not quite my cup of tea, it certainly is working as intended. This is meant to punch you in the gut and leave you gasping for breath. Ultimately, while this is not my favourite track on the album, I still like it a lot, even if it does lack the subtlety I'm so fond of, and is very similar not only to Vultures, but also the next song up, Ascend. The resemblance between Ascend and Movement to Vultures is striking. Firstly, their pacing and structure is very similar, meaning that the songs must use tone, groove and lyrics creatively so as not to feel like unnecessary rehashes of the earlier work. While Movement relies on weight of an extremely heavy bass line and politically charged lyrics, Ascend has a stronger focus on a super drum groove and a more pronounced guitar work. This makes Ascend sound more open and lively, and it makes the song feel lighter as well, really giving that sense of flight and actually making it sound even more like Vultures than Movement does. However, that's fine, because I say so. Yeah, I like Ascend a lot, even if it's not as deep or complex as the next track, which just so happens to be a fuck-mothering masterpiece. Next up is Hyperion. What a track. And they knew they'd struck gold here too, you can be damn sure of that. This song has hints of everything I like. Sure, there's some Opeth and a dash of Catatonia, but most notably, I hear a lot of Porcupine Tree in this. It reminds me of Anesthetize, which is about the highest praise I can give to any song that isn't Anesthetize. I mean, I don't think it's as good as Wheel's namesake track, but it's dripping in that flowing, effortless power that I love so much, paired with an impending sense of doom like it's the end of the world or something. That hits a little close to home at the moment. Anyway, this track is awesome. In particular, the guitar is just delightfully tasteful. Each section of this song is great and flows into the next seamlessly. I'd say it's just about flawless. It's an unbelievable experience, and it sets a very high bar for the next song, Fugue. Now here we have something very different. Fugue is a much more subdued and calm track. It's very hard not to compare this to Tool's Disposition. Again, sounding like Tool, not as big of a deal as far as I'm concerned. But still, it's kind of an unavoidable comparison. Then again, Disposition is the kind of track we could always have more of, right? This is a good piece. A little longer than necessary maybe, very groovy though, and dripping with atmosphere. I love that guitar riff and that double bass drum section. I love it when bands use sporadic double bass drum. It doesn't happen enough and it sounds awesome. Now, time for the final song. Gone through this pretty quickly, haven't I? The title track, Resident Human. The third 10-minute metal marathon, and my least favourite of the three. I'm not to say it's bad, of course, but this is a very competent piece, but Dissipating and Hyperion are extraordinary tracks, and Resident Human can't quite keep up. It's still up there, I'd say as good as Tyrant off Moving Backwards, but if I was to give one reason why it's not on the level of the other two, it would be lyrics in the chorus. Usually you want your lyrics to either flow really well or to have hidden double meanings, at least that's what I look for. This chorus is kind of clunky and obvious and it kind of annoys me. I mean, it's not Dream Theater bad, but still, I get that you sometimes have to sacrifice lyrical flow to fit in an important sentence, but here we have two lines that mean the same thing, don't flow well with each other or with the previous line. Purely for reference, the lines I'm talking about here are, "Here I am as a man divided, who I am and who I aspire to be, torn between present and future." Not good. Anyway, the rest of the song is great. This is just a nitpick, but it still annoys me. Partially, I think, because James Lascelles' lyrical style is very similar to my own, and this is the kind of thing that I'd totally never ever write down and consider, but also would totally write down and consider and get into a song. Finally, there's the ending. As the song fades into a slow, deliberate guitar pattern, it's then replaced by the same 5 notes played on a piano, creating this beautifully resigned melancholy that is as much the end of Resident Human as it is the beginning of Old Earth. And what a joyous respite Old Earth is. Depressing as shit, but there's also something very therapeutic about hearing those final piano notes ringing out. It really makes me feel like it's over. I feel like there aren't enough small, simple piano pieces in metal albums. Like, it doesn't happen enough. And as a lover of small, short piano solo pieces, it really speaks to me. All in all, I'd say this album is better than Moving Backwards in almost every way. Consistently very high quality all the way through the album. Hyperion is a crowning jewel. If I was to lodge any other overarching complaints at the album, it would be there's not enough breathing space. Old Earth is a brilliant ending, but I wish there was more stuff like it. And this is it. I hope you enjoyed the review. I'm planning on doing some less scripted videos in the near future. Hopefully that should speed on my reviewing process, as this review is about a month and a half late. That should mean more reviews, in theory at least. But for now, goodbye.